Welcome to Abhiram IAS Academy. Let us go through the daily chronicles of January 10th, 2025. So today we are going to discuss these articles. Modi is calling for documenting the history of Indian diaspora. Then PM is going to open Zaimur Tunnel. And Supreme Court rejects the review petitions on same-sex marriage. And BN Sri Krishna is going to head the Equal Platform. Then India releases compilation of 10,000 genomes under Genome India project of 83 population groups. So these are the articles. So the first article is this one. Modi calls for documenting the history of Indian diaspora. You can find it on the first page. So it is related to GS2 topic, international relations, and subtopic Indian diaspora. So we are going to discuss these aspects. So the event was inaugurated at Dhauli, Odisha. What is the significance of Dhauli, Odisha? And documentation of Girmityas. Who are Girmityas? So what is their role? And India is amplifying the voice of Global South. What does Global South mean? So we are going to look at all these aspects. So first, let us go through the significance of Dhauli. So Dhauli is significant because Emperor Ashoka, after Kalinga war, has renounced the war and embraced Buddhism and Dhamma. So that is the significance. At Dhauli, we can find the rock edicts that have described about religious tolerance, peace and non-violence. The statement also says the future lies in Buddha, not in war. So Modi has given this statement. So it is signifying that the future is in global peace and not global war. So he also calls for documenting the achievements of Indian diaspora. And why is Dhauli important? Because it signifies that even after the most violent wars, there can still be spiritual and moral awakening, just like Emperor Ashoka. That is the significance. Next, India's development and global role. Modi also talks about India's development and its global role. So India is developing. It has come from 10th largest economy to 5th largest economy, and it is on track to become 3rd largest economy soon. So we have lifted 25 crore people out of poverty in the last decade, and world listens to what India says. So because it is amplifying the voice of Global South. So Global South and Global North are different groupings for understanding the developmental economy. What is Global North and Global South? So basically Global North signifies the advanced nations who have industrialized earlier. So they were the colonial nations and they have colonized the nations like India and other southern hemisphere nations. So that's where the difference is coming from. So Global South is nothing but the emerging markets or emerging economies with lower income compared to the Global North. What are the examples of Global South grouping? We can see IBSA, that is India, Brazil, South Africa grouping. It is a South-South cooperation group formed through Brasilia Declaration. Then we also have NAM, that is Non-Aligned Movement. That is one of the earliest South groupings. And we also have G77 and AU, African Union, and BRICS also is an example of Global South cooperation. Then what is Global North? We have seen that it is a group of industrialized nations who have advanced economies and they are wealthier. So US, Canada, Europe and some East Asian nations like Japan and South Korea also come under Global North groupings. So what are the examples of this? G7, group of 7, and we have OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is headquartered in Paris. And then we have NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and we have EU, European Union, and also the latest AUKUS, that is Australia, UK and US grouping. So these are all examples of Global North. PM Modi calls for documentation of Girmitya community. So who are Girmityas? Girmitya is a term derived from Girmit, that means agreement, which is distorted version of agreement. So it was Girmit in Indian slang. So who are these Girmitya? They were indentured laborers who were taken by the colonial rulers to other nations for working in plantations under harsh conditions for cheap labor. So they used to get minimum wages and minimum benefits only, but they have to work for long hours and they were bonded by agreements for 5 to 7 years. So they were Girmits. Okay. So the article says we want to have a comprehensive database of their history, their achievements, to highlight their significant contribution to Indian diaspora, and it is also establishing a case for conducting World Girmitya conferences and also researching their history and documenting it. Girmitya is also important for another reason. Mahatma Gandhi, when he was in South Africa, he fought for the rights of Girmitya community that led to his political and social awakening. So that is another significance of Girmitya community. So Girmitya means agreement, okay? And they are the group of indentured laborers taken by the colonial rulers like Dutch, English and French. And they were taken to various European colonies to work in plantations. Like what? What are the countries they were taken to? Fiji, Mauritius, Trinidad and Tobago, then Guyana, that is formerly called as British Guyana, and we have Suriname, South Africa, Malaysia and also Reunion Islands. Next article is about Zamoor Tunnel. So PM is opening this on January 13th. What is the significance of this tunnel and what are other tunnels? What are the benefits of such tunnels? So we are going to look at all of them. It is relevant to your GS3 economy infrastructure topic. Okay. So let us go through various tunnels inhabiting these regions. So these are different tunnels. Okay. So here we have Srinagar and this is Anantnag, Vailu, Khelani, Udhampur and Jammu. So Jammu and Srinagar are connected by NH44 and we also have another NH in this region, that is NH244, that is coming from here. Okay. And let us go through the major tunnels here. Zojila Tunnel. It is one of the longest in Asia, 14 kilometers, and it provides all-weather connectivity connecting Srinagar to Leh and Kargil. Okay. So it is connecting Srinagar to Kargil. Then we have Zamoor Tunnel, which is going to be open now. That will connect Srinagar to Sonmarg. Sonmarg is somewhere here. So Sonmarg is wanting to be placed on winter tourism destination. So if we have all-weather connectivity, we can place Sonmarg on this winter tourism also. So that is the advantage. Then we have Singpora and Vailu Tunnel. Singpora and Vailu Tunnel. It will connect Jammu to Anantnag. Jammu to Anantnag is connected by Singpora and Vailu Tunnel. Then we have KM83 Tunnel. This is connecting Jammu to Anantnag again. So Jammu to Anantnag is connected by two tunnels, that is KM83 and also Singpora Vailu Tunnel. So these two tunnels. And then we have Khelani Tunnel. Khelani Tunnel is connecting the Chenani to Anantnag. Chenani to Anantnag is Khelani Tunnel. Then we have Shuddha Mahadev Dranga Tunnel. Shuddha Mahadev Tunnel is connecting Jammu to Anantnag. So these are important tunnels in this region. What are the benefits of this tunnel? So they will provide all-weather connectivity. Usually in winter, there will be heavy snowfall in this region, because of which roads will be blocked and it is not safe to travel here because of avalanches. And it is also important for our defense and security, because in winter also we need to have army bases supplies. So they will be connected through these tunnels and ensure all-weather connectivity to army bases also. That's why it is important for defense and security. So examples for defense and security are Zojila and Singpura Tunnel. So next we have Winter Tourism Tunnel. Winter Tourism Trade and Business Tunnel. So winter tourism, we have seen Sonmarg is wanting to be on winter tourism destination. So that is provided with this Zamoor Tunnel, which is to be inaugurated. And we have socio-economic benefits also. So there will be connectivity to the remote locations also, which were so far secluded because of the winter harsh climate. And so it will also improve the access to services. So they can access multiple services like education, healthcare, any kind of connectivity issues also will be resolved. And travel time is also reduced. For example, Zojila reduces the travel time in a section of Srinagar to Kargil from 3.5 hours to just 15 minutes. So that is the significance of these tunnels. So next article is about Supreme Court rejecting to review its judgment on October 2023, that is Supriya Chakraborty case on same-sex marriages. So this is relevant to your topic, GS2, Governance and Social Justice, vulnerable sections related to transgenders and same-sex couples. So we are going to see what is sexual orientation, what is gender identity, what is LGBTQ plus mean, and we are seeing the cases also, and Supreme Court is rejecting the reviewing. Let us have a look at sexual orientation and gender identity. So sexual orientation, what does it mean? A person may be attracted sexually or romantically to another person. So a man may be attracted to a man or a woman. So the different sexual orientations are coming under this sexual orientation definition. It is external attraction. To whom we are attracted is determined by this. Okay. There are different types of sexual orientation, that is lesbian, gay, bisexual and heterosexual. Lesbian is where a woman is attracted to another woman, whereas gay is where a man is attracted to another man. And what is bisexual? A man may be attracted to a man and also a woman. So that is bisexual. So what is heterosexual? Heterosexual is nothing but a regular attraction, that is a man will be attracted to a woman or a woman attracted to a man. That is called as heterosexuality. So what is gender identity? So gender identity is nothing but an internal sense of gender. So a person may not feel the same gender as his birth. Okay. So the assigned gender may be different from what he is feeling. So we have the concepts like cisgender, that is a person's gender is same as he is feeling. Okay. And transgender is where a person will feel different gender than his assigned gender. So that is transgender. It can be transgender man or transgender woman. So transgender man is a woman may feel as a man when she grows up. She is called as transgender man. Okay. Similarly, a man may feel like a woman. He is called as transgender woman. So it is the final gender they feel is more important, that is transgender man and transgender woman. There are also other gender identities like agender. So these are neutral genders. They don't feel any gender. So they don't feel any strong connection to any gender. So they are also called as gender neutral people. We also have bigender. A person may feel both the genders like man and woman at the same time. It may be varying. So they are frequently switching their genders internally. So these are different types of gender identities. So what are the cases related to them? So in 2014, we have NALSA case 2014 about gender identity. So the gender identity was given to the third gender, that is transgenders were given this legal identity by this case. So right to self-identity of one's own gender is by 2014 NALSA case. Then we have 2018 Navdeep Singh Johar case. It is about sexual orientation, whereas this is about gender identity. What is sexual orientation? So we have seen it is about attraction between different genders. So it has decriminalized sexual acts between same sex. Okay. Any kind of consensual sexual acts will be decriminalized from now on after 2018 Navdeep Singh Johar case. Okay. Let us understand LGBTQ+. So lesbian. Lesbian is a woman attracted to another woman is lesbian. So for example, Ellen, the popular person is Ellen. She is a lesbian. Then we have gay. Gay is a man being attracted to another man. What is the popular example for this? Apple CEO Tim Cook was example for this gay. And then we have bisexual. So bisexual means a man attracted to man and also a woman. Similarly, a woman may be attracted to a man and woman. So that is bisexual. So popular examples are Lady Gaga and Drew Barrymore. Next we have transgender. So she is Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, who is fighting for transgender rights. So she is the popular example in India for transgender. So they will identify their gender as different from the assigned gender. Okay. Then queer. So what is queer mean? Dictionary meaning is strange or peculiar. Okay. So this denotes an umbrella term for all the genders which are not heterosexual or cisgender. Okay. We have seen cisgender is nothing but the gender felt and the gender assigned are same, that is cisgender. And heterosexual, a man attracted to a woman and women attracted to man is nothing but heterosexual. Then what is questioning? Questioning is nothing but some people may feel they are yet to figure out what is their gender. So they are exploring what is their gender, that is questioning. They are still figuring out. Then we have plus. Any kind of identity which doesn't fit in these groups comes under plus. For example, asexual or pansexual. So asexual is a person who doesn't have any kind of sexual orientation. Whereas pansexual is regardless of other person's gender, he will be having attraction to anyone, any person. So that is pansexual. So that means plus. Then, can transgender marry a heterosexual person, heterosexual partner? Yes, he can. After the 2014 NALSA case, third gender was legalized. So a transgender man, okay, a transgender man, that is a woman who felt she is a man, she can marry a woman. Okay, there is heterosexual attraction between the identified or felt genders. Then we have a transgender woman who can marry a man. Okay, that is a man who identified himself as a woman, he can marry a man. So these are legal. They are under Hindu Marriage Act and Special Marriage Act. So after the NALSA case, this is legalized. And then October 2023 judgment, that is Supriya Chakraborty case. So what is this case? The court says right to marry is not fundamental right. The court has left it to the parliament to decide on the legality of same-sex marriages. Okay. Whereas the transgender marriage is legal, but the same-sex marriage is not yet legalized. However, it has directed Centre to constitute a high-powered committee chaired by Cabinet Secretary to address the issues of discrimination faced by the same-sex couples and also how to enable more access to services for these couples. So, it is addressing the issues of discrimination and access to services, but not the legality of the marriage. Next article is about Justice B.N. Srikrishna is going to head the Equal Firm, which is a data sharing platform and also ID verification and consent manager platform. It is relevant to your GS3 topic, infrastructure, digital infrastructure. You can find this article in page 12. What does the article say? What is data sharing process? What are the stages involved? And data sharing platform and account aggregator. What does these terms mean? We are going to see all of these. So, Equal. So, he is going to head Equal. It is a firm which is a ID verification platform and data sharing platform. So, businesses will need to access data of persons or users through some platforms. So, but it has to be secure and accurate with verification. So, these are done by platforms like Equal. Okay, they can verify the KYC, know your customer norms, and prevent the fraud also if there are multiple IDs with fake ones. So they can easily identify and block them. So that's how they can prevent the fraud, and it is also within the regulatory compliance of the legal frameworks. Okay, so these are the domains, and it is going to collaborate with account aggregator platforms like OneMoney. So, Equal like data sharing platforms are going to collaborate with OneMoney platform. So, what is OneMoney platform? They have multiple account details of the users. So, user will have different kinds of data, right? Aadhaar, PAN, bank accounts, investment ideas, all these can be consolidated and aggregated into one platform like OneMoney. So, these are account aggregators. So, let us understand what is the data sharing process. Okay. What are the different stakeholders in this? There are financial information users and financial information providers. Then there are account aggregators and some data sharing platforms like Equal. Okay. Let us take an example. Account aggregator, we have example OneMoney, and FIPs, financial information providers. They can be any financial entities like banks and all. And here, financial information users, someone like your investment advisor. Okay, he wants to use your personal data. So, he can be regarded as financial information user. So, let us understanding the stages in data sharing process. So, first one is, so if I am a customer and I want to apply a bank loan, I am a customer of Andhra Bank savings account and I also hold mutual fund account at HDFC Bank. So, I want to apply for SBI bank loan. So, the SBI bank is acting as FIU here, which wants to use my data to assess my credit worthiness. So, SBI can be called as financial information user. So, the FIU, financial information user, sends the request for consent through platforms like OneMoney, that is account aggregator. So, account aggregator will be receiving the request from financial information user like SBI. Then I have to authorize the transaction of data. So how do I authorize that? There is a stage called consent authorization. I will receive a notification from a consent manager. So the account aggregator himself doesn't ask for your consent. He will go through a platform of data sharing or consent manager like Equal. So One Money like platform will ask Equal for consent authorization. So Equal is the consent manager here. It will share the data after ID verification. So Equal is the consent manager and One Money is the account aggregator. Account aggregator will ask Equal to obtain consent from me. So I will receive a notification from Equal. Okay. And I will approve the consent after reviewing the process. So then they will obtain my consent. Now the data has to be retrieved. Okay. So how do they retrieve? Here, financial information providers. My account is already in Andhra Bank. I have a savings account and I also hold HDFC mutual fund account. So the financial information providers here are existing banks which have my data, that is Andhra Bank and HDFC mutual fund. So they will give the data to the new one, that is SBI, that is financial information user now is SBI, right? They will give the data to FIU. Okay. So the FIPs will give the data to One Money through again Equal only. Then Equal will verify if I am the same person who is giving the consent. It will recheck the ID and ensure the data is accurate and you are the same person who has given the consent. Okay. So that is the role of Equal. Then the data will be aggregated from multiple bank accounts that I have and also Aadhaar, PAN card, all these. All the data will be aggregated by the account aggregator and he will give the data to the financial information user. Okay. That is SBI here from where I want the loan. Then finally, loan assessment and approval. So finally, the loan will be given after the approval and assessment of my credit worthiness. So that is the process. Next, there are data sharing platforms and also account aggregators. We have understood the differences. So let us look at the examples. So Equal is one such data sharing platform or consent manager and also ID verification firm, and SignZ. SignZ is also one such example. Then we have IDFY and Verify Digital. So these are all examples of data sharing platforms. Then we have account aggregators. Account aggregators examples are One Money, FinWoo and CAMS FinServe. These are all examples of account aggregators. Next article is India releases a compilation of 10,000 genomes of 83 population groups, that is accounting for 2% of the 4,600 population groups we have. This is relevant to your GS3 topic, that is biotechnology and subtopic genomics. You can find this article on page 12. So we are going to see what is Genome India project, what does the article say and what are the benefits of mapping the genomics. So what is the genome? Let us have a look at this. So genome is nothing but all the genes you have in the 23 pairs of chromosomes. That means all the DNA sequences of yours and also mitochondrial DNA, any kind of DNA that will hold information to your biological processes. All that is regarded as genome. Okay. It has the DNA within 23 pairs of chromosomes. It has the information of all the body and also it is stored in the chromosomes along the molecules of DNA. So if we see here, so this is the nucleus and this is the cell. Okay. And here we have mitochondria. So nucleus also has 23 pairs of chromosomes and here we have mitochondrial DNA. Both these, okay, both these strands of DNA, if we map them, that is nothing but genome. And then we have, and let us understand where the gene is coming. So this is the cell, okay, it has a nucleus and the nucleus will have 23 pairs of chromosomes. So these 23 comes in genome and also mitochondrial DNA. Then we have, if we take out one chromosome and extend it, we can find the DNA. So this is the DNA and these are the nucleotides. Okay, these small ones, they are pairing. So they are nothing but nucleotides. And a sequence or a segment of DNA is nothing but a gene. So there are different segments of DNA. Each one is accounting for one gene. Okay. Next, India releases compilation of this 10,000 genomes and of 83 population groups. So the Genome India project has started on 2020 by DBT, that is Department of Biotechnology. So, but the main research organization that is heading this project is Center for Brain Research of IISc Bangalore. There are also 20 other groups or 20 other organizations across India involved in this project. So now we have sequenced 10,000 genomes, that is roughly accounting for 2% of population groups, that is 83 population groups out of 4,000, that is 83 population groups out of 4,600 groups. Okay. We want to expand it to 1 million genomes eventually. So it is hosted at IBDC, Faridabad in Haryana. What is IBDC? It is Indian Biological Data Center. It is in Faridabad, Haryana. The benefit is it will act as a reference. It is an open source. Anyone can access it, but encrypted form only in numerical codes. Okay. And what are the technologies used here in genome sequencing? There is whole genome sequencing, long read sequencing, next generation sequencing, and genotyping arrays and DNA methylation techniques also. Whole genome sequencing. Basically, DNA segments will be looked at first and then all the segments will be compiled and summed up. So that is how we obtain the whole genome sequence. Then we have long read sequences. Instead of small segments, we can look at the longer stretches of DNA, that is long read sequences. An example is PacBio and Oxford Nanopore. Next generation sequencing will give you a lot of scale but also cost effective. That means you can monitor the genomes at a larger scale of large people, multiple people. So that is next generation sequencing. And we have genotyping arrays. So if there is any genetic variation among population, any uniqueness or some kind of genetic markers are there, they will be identified with the help of genotyping arrays. Okay. Then we have DNA methylation. So what is DNA methylation? Methylation is nothing but addition of a methyl group to the DNA. So without changing the underlying DNA sequence, a methyl group will be added to the DNA and the gene expressed will be different. Okay. So that is DNA methylation. It will help in understanding the impact of environmental factors on human health and diseases, because nowadays we are subjected to multiple environmental pollutants and all the environmental exposure or lifestyle diseases can be understood by DNA methylation technique. So next, what are the benefits of genome sequencing? We can have research base, right? So we can have database and we can conduct research on Indian specific genetic variations, and it will give an insight into India's genetic diversity, and it will highlight any kind of unique genetic traits we may have. For example, on the global level, there are 27 million genetic variations, out of which 7 million are from India. So we can understand and study them also, and we can understand the disease prevalence and any kind of susceptibility to disease. Some genetic groups of population might be having some specific diseases which are only recurring in them. So we can understand the disease susceptibility of such populations. Then studying the adverse drug reactions. We can also study the adverse drug reactions. For example, a drug may be manufactured in Europe. It may be suited to their own population, but our genes may be different. So it has to be modified to suit the Indian genes. So some kind of modification might be done only after looking at the research database on genomics. So that's how it helps in precision medicine. And it also expands the biotech manufacturing industry and helps in healthcare innovation also. And globally, genomic data is so much and there are some gaps in it. So India specific genomics can fill that gap also. So whatever the gaps are there with respect to India, we can fill the gap in this genomic data. It will also help in understanding the genetic evolution and population migration patterns. So humans thought to have been originated in Africa and later on they migrated to different places. Okay. So we can understand and trace the evolution and migration patterns by studying these genetics. And the project also codes the data in numerical forms, but not in any other forms like religion, caste or anything. So that's why we have ethical data sharing principles here. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Abhiram IAS Academy.